How did you learn to write books? Well, the quick and easy answer is I just did it. But I want to go into a little more detail because that's not very helpful. But what I mean by that is I stepped into it. One of the things about my mentor, who's amazing, is she would always encourage me when I got something from God to just step out and do it. But specifically, like how I learned to write books, like Winning the Battle was, I think, my 4th or 5th book. I just approved the galleys on my another book that's with Broad Street right now. We'll have available for you early in the new year. And I'm getting ready to start another book for a different publisher here, a prophetic book. But so I have done 5 or 6 books now, started to work on the 7th, I believe. Really, the way I learned how to write books was probably the easiest way to say it was by building messages, whether that was mini messages when I first stepped out into media devotionals or by preaching, because really all a book is it's presenting a message and it's using that message to encourage and empower people, to help them understand a revelation and unpack it so they can get it, so they can grab hold of it, and so they can walk in it. And really, it's the same thing with a preach or a message. And I got to thinking about this, and I thought, really, I always start with an outline. Like, well, that's not true. I start with a revelation. I start with an idea. I start with God putting something on my heart or God showing me something for His people or for the time. So that's the topic. That's the gist of the message. That's the nugget. But then I work with God and say, okay, Lord, how are we going to unpack this? So how do we present the message? How do we support the message? How do we unpack the message? How do we serve it up like in bite-sized pieces? So I create an outline. I create an outline, say, for the book. It would start with, like, with Winning the Battle. It was the title, Winning the Battle, Fear, Mind, Will, and Emotions. And then I thought, okay, how am I going to explain this? And then that would give me the chapter headings of how we're going to break into this, how are we going to present this message. And then in the chapter, it's like, okay, this chapter is, let's say, on the power of the mind. So what do I want to communicate about the supernatural power of our mind? How has Jesus unlocked that? How do we operate in that? And that really is how you write a book. It's how do you preach a message? How do you share your heart? What's your topic? What do you want to communicate? I think it's important to make it applicable to people so you're not just sharing head knowledge or revelation. I think it's really important to share something you've lived through, something you've been tested in, so there's spiritual substance to it that can be imparted. And the way I think we impart that is we break down what the message is, we help people understand it, we make it applicable to them. I think it's important to share stories and testimonies that illustrate the point so it's easier to grab hold of. And then I also think it's really important to share with people how to apply those things in their life. Like in Winning the Battle, every single chapter ends with battle keys. So this book is all about how you can live in the more of God that you've been crying out for, how you can unlock the supernatural power of your mind, your will, and emotions to live in the fullness of everything God's blessed you with, including those things you haven't seen made manifest in your life yet. It's all about what God mentored me in that I get to mentor you in, but every single chapter ends with what we call battle keys, and there's specific ways of applying that revelation to your life. So really, the way I learned how to write books and the way you can step into writing books is think about it as creating a message. What is my message? How can I make it understandable to people so they can grab hold of it? How can I illustrate the points of the message? And how can I help them apply it? How can I help mentor them in how to walk into it? So I hope that helped. Tell stories that illustrate your point, help people apply the truth so it's more than only knowledge. But if you think about it like you would giving a 10-minute talk, what are you going to talk about? What's the old thing? Tell them what you're going to say it, and tell them what you said. But in that, like when we're working with our interns and stuff, we help them, we help them step into preaching by doing a 5-minute preach. Because what you learn in a 5-minute preach of, this is my message, this is how I'm going to unpack it and help you understand it scripturally and with an illustration, and then I'm going to reinforce the message on how you can apply it. You do that with one idea in 5 minutes. It's the same thing with a 30-minute preach. You're just doing more illustrations and unpacking it further. It's the same thing with a 200-page book. So that's how I learned to do it. I learned to do it by preaching, by building messages, by creating outlines so that I had a roadmap of working my way through it, and then by simply stepping out and doing it.